Welcome, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Jeremy with Conscious Recovery, and today TJ and I are joined by our wonderful friends from the camp in Scotts Valley, California. They are one of Conscious Recovery's partnered programs, and I believe the second or third program to adopt Conscious Recovery, one of the earlier adopters. And so we love our relationship with the camp and all the wonderful work they're doing up there. And I, for one, am super excited to chat with them about their program, what they do, and how Conscious Recovery supports their clients. And we're really excited and very grateful to have all of you with us. So thank you all for being here. So I thought we'd first start with introductions. So Hector, I'm going to pass it to you to introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do at the camp.
Hi, Jeremy. Nice to see you. Hi, TJ. So my name is Hector Abundiz, and I'm the program manager for the Alumni Services Department and Discharge Planning Department here at the camp. And so, plus I do a little bit of everything, right? Group facilitator, counselor, / advocate, everything that you can think of. So part of what I do here at the camp is I help with the client. We work really closely to develop what's next, right? Like the aftercare plans, like the safety networks, the continuum of care, and we do it. And we have such a program that's so robust. Like we also have an alumni program that stays in contact with clients once they leave, just in case they need that extra support, or if they need help with transitioning to sober living, finding IOP, finding a therapist, finding any type of doctors or psychiatrists. We can have all that ready for them before they discharge.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you, Hector. And who's with you there?
My name is Megan Tapiz. I'm the clinical supervisor here at the camp. I started here about 2 years ago and started out as a counselor. And that was the first time I did the conscious recovery training, was maybe 2 or 3 months into it. I was able to do TJ's kind of refresher last summer, which was great. But through here, I carry a caseload. I help other counselors with their caseloads. I work on making sure everyone knows their discharge date and has that plan for continued care and everything, kind of just making sure that there's like the well-rounded levels of treatment that we all need. I also help out in IOP occasionally on Mondays, and the reason I do Mondays is because that's the day that program runs Conscious Recovery. So I get to go down and make sure the curriculum is still carried down there, and it just runs such a different dynamic between doing it with clients that are in residential treatment versus clients that are in IOP level of care. It's been really cool to be able to do both, and that's why I've been able to kind of keep going down there at least once a month to run it. So that's been fun. But yeah, it's been a good 2 years of running this curriculum with our clients here, and I know that they love it, and it's a really good kind of rotation of curriculum we get to implement here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we're going to dive into that as soon as we introduce Miss Taya. Do you want to let everybody know what you do at the camp?
Yes, well, I'm very grateful to be here today, and I'm grateful to be at camp. I'm the newest member of the camp family. I've been here for a little over, well, I would say a month and a half or so, and I'm the new clinical director. So I have pleasure working with our substance use residential facility. We also have adolescent facility here at the residential side. And I have pleasure sort of working with our partial hospitalization as well as our intensive outpatient programs, both in Campbell and Scotts Valley. So we have robust programs, and we're really grateful to have Conscious Recovery as part of our programming. And I'm excited to talk about it a little bit more as we deepen our conversation. But that's sort of overall my role here. I'm involved in different areas of sort of operations, daily operations, and support for all staff and all programs.
Right on. Thank you so much. And TJ, do you want to introduce yourself and welcome everybody to the show?
Sure. Thank you, Jeremy. And I'm so grateful for the conversation. I'm TJ Woodward, creator and founder, founder and CEO of Conscious Recovery. And I love these conversations. I love that we are partnering with programs all over the country now, and incredibly grateful. It is true. I think camp might have been the third or fourth program, very early adopter of the curriculum. So We love this long-standing relationship. And I also love that as new people come in, like Taya, I love having met you now, and that it keeps our partnership alive, and that conscious recovery isn't something that's really stagnant as we partner with different programs, and it really comes to life in a different way. And I just purely selfishly, I love this conversation because I get to hear how conscious recovery is going in the program. You know, I go to the program once a year to do a tune-up training, but I always love hearing updates on how the clients are receiving it. So I'm happy to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
My mouse keeps disappearing on me and I couldn't unmute myself. Okay, so that being said, I know we had picked two topics for our conversation today, and that was communication and change, which are two of my favorite of the conscious recovery groups for residential. And I thought we would start first by checking in and seeing how the clients respond specifically to communication. So I know at the camp, there is a pretty big variety in the milieu. There's a lot of different age groups, and you know, and it's nestled up in the redwoods, so it's this beautiful, serene location. And every time I go up there, it feels like a really nice summer camp for adults and adolescents to kind of recognize their inherent wholeness and learn how to live a more fulfilling life. And I feel that both change and communication support those efforts in a big way. So I thought I'd open it up and ask Hector, maybe we could start with you and talk about some of your experience facilitating the groups, and specifically what shifts you see in the clients in the communication group.
So I just want to say, so I was one of like the first staff members to get trained in conscious recovery with TJ. And I remember because there was I was one of the first staff members that had to train other staff members on how to present the curriculum. And what caught my attention about communication, what I've noticed that's happening with our clientele is there's so many of our clients that don't have the insight on how they have not been communicating, not necessarily with their loved ones, but in a way advocating for what they need, right? And so one of the things that I love about communication is the fact that you get to kind of give them the opportunity to kind of really think about what have been the ways that have not worked for them in communication. And then when they get to pick the side that they normally tend to living in the most, it's like a real eye-opening for them, like, wow, this is what's the way this is the way it's been hurting me for the longest time. And so that's what I love about communication. And clients love it because it's one of those groups where people get up and they move. So they really, really, really love it because it's very interactive.
Absolutely. Megan, what about you?
You know, the thing with communication that I like to talk with about clients in general is it's another type of boundary. You know, we talk about emotional boundaries and physical boundaries, and then there's the communication boundaries. And, you know, this curriculum allows a client to see how they've had patterns of being a little bit more aggressive in their communication style, or being a little bit more passive aggressive, and asking, when does that style typically come up for me? Someone who doesn't typically think that they're passive, you know, I would have a client, you know, share maybe about a domestic violence situation that they were involved in, and how they had to go more passive because that was their means of survival. And so it's looking at how to utilize each type of communication as a strength, which I think is really cool. And when we offer that type of information around the different styles, clients get a better idea of what it is for themselves. And it could be stuff that they already know, they just didn't know how to label it. And I think that that's been really, really cool to watch them learn how to do is, you know, which style is hardest for you to deal with when someone's coming at you in an aggressive way? What's your means of survival? How do you respond back? Do you like that way of communicating? And then even asking them, you know, what's the fear of trying another way of communicating that way? And like I said, running it at the residential level with people who maybe have 48 hours clean and they're a little bit spicier, versus the people who are in IOP and they go home at the end of the night. They would have just been dealing with communication with their partner at lunch and had to come to process group or whatever it is that we run it in, and really get a chance to kind of like decompress around what came up for them because of the communication that they used or they fell into, and also what their families used with them. Yeah, so this topic I think is really, really beneficial for clients because it's not something that people typically just stop and go, is that the most healthiest way to communicate with someone? And I think that that's like the biggest benefit, I think, for this particular topic that I've seen.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that too, that this group explores the different styles and not from a place of guilt or shame, but rather just awareness. And that was what hit me the most when I go with TJ to trainings, is sometimes we'll facilitate that group with the staff. And it's so much fun to see the almost like labeling one type of communication as bad or wrong, and just offering a slight reframe and saying, well, let's just be aware of what style in which we're communicating. And I think that awareness is so powerful. And Taya, as someone who's overseeing clinical, what do you see as a clinical supervisor as the benefit of exploring a topic like communication with the clients?
Yeah, one of the things that really attracted me to this particular topic and how it's reframed. We all have different communication styles, and at some point it served the purpose, right? Whether it's we may not want to think about, or it may not make sense if we say aggressive communication style had served the purpose, but it had. And so this really provides the moment and time and in a safe sort of environment to explore, what does this mean? How did it start? We all learned or kind of got into the different communication styles so that they serve the purpose. And then also having the communication about if it no longer serves the purpose, what do we do next? And the beauty of conscious recovery and the reframe of what we would say assertive communication style is what you would call, and we call when we talk about this with our clients, is really authentic communication, right? So what a beautiful reframe there, because as humans, right? So what do we need? What do we want? Our biggest need is to be heard and to be seen. And if you are communicating and being your authentic self, then you get to be seen as your authentic self. So that's such a powerful sort of topic and sort of ability for us to start the conversation in a safe environment, like you said, without judging that at times we may be passive aggressive. I wonder why, and what does it serve? So I get chills as I talk about it because I've seen people just really have a great shift. I've shadowed or sort of attended some of the partial hospitalization groups and witnessed that shift with some of the clients, and it's quite powerful. Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much. I really love that, Tay, and I think it's such a valuable perspective, because I feel like a lot of times when we talk about communication, it's almost like lost on us because it's like this ethereal concept and it's overly complicated oftentimes in treatment. But I love that. I love the way you boiled that down. And TJ, what I want to pass it to you with is, now that we've kind of heard about the application of the group and what it means for the clients and what the experience that they have in the group, when you originated these groups, what place were you coming from? What was the motivation, or what was the drive for you to create this group the way that you created it?
Well, thank you. And I just want to say how grateful I am to hear everyone's experience, and I can echo everything that's already been said. So really, this particular group, I think there's two things that stand out, and they've already kind of been addressed, and that is this idea of good and bad and right and wrong. And with conscious recovery, we're not coming from a place of even healthy or unhealthy. or positive or negative, we're looking at the question, what gets created when, right? So if I have found myself, and believe me, I have, using passive aggressive communication, we want to, as Taya said, we don't want to look at how it's unhealthy or wrong. We want to ask what gets created when you communicate in a passive aggressive way, and is it useful? And then what do you really desire? And I love what Taya said. We all want to be heard. We all want to be appreciated. We all, on some level, hopefully at least want to understand as well. I want to understand the people in my life, but I'm in this dynamic that's usually unconscious because it has served us in some way. And so the group, with communication specifically, is designed to help us first get in touch with what is our default. But as several people have mentioned, when and where and why did that get created, and in what way was it useful, right? So I remember one time years ago when I was facilitating this group, a client said, well, my parents were both aggressive, so I had no choice but to be aggressive back. And another client said, wow, that's really weird. My parents were both aggressive, and I thought my only choice was to be passive. So this person went to their room and closed the door. So the idea with the group isn't to say there's something wrong with using aggressive or using passive, but to look at how it got created. And as Taya said, when was it, as we say in conscious recovery, when was it a brilliant strategy, and how did it serve us? We always want to start with how does it serve us, then start to look at what do we really desire. And at the core, I believe, and my experience has shown me, that we want authentic connection. So we look at not assertive communication, but authentic. Authenticity creates connection. So as we look at the different styles, we can start to look at how it shows up in our life, what gets created, and then what do I truly desire, and how can I start moving that direction?
Yeah, I love that, TJ. Thank you so much. And one of the things that Megan said that I'm still kind of lingering on is, in an outpatient setting, when a client is both engaging with their family system and participating in treatment every day, it gives this really practical way to take, this awareness and insight from the group and bring it home and see what happens. And one of the things that TJ says all the time that I just love is that life is a great experiment. And so, I think of a client in outpatient and, doing the communication group and then saying, wow, I can't wait to go home and bring some attention to how I'm communicating with my family. And in the group itself, in the facilitator's guide, TJ says that moving towards an authentic communication style allows us to not only feel more comfortable in our own skin, it allows us to have deeper, more meaningful relationships. And I just love that. And I think everybody spoke to that so beautifully. And so, Hector, I'm going to pass it back to you just because I know that you've kind of had the most experience. And so when you were in the conscious recovery training for the first time, do you remember if TJ modeled a group for you guys?
Yes, he did. I remember the first time I've done both trainings with TJ, as a matter of fact. I did the tune-up this last one, and I did the original training. And we went over all groups. And I remember when we first started, I did not know what to expect, right? The first thing I looked at was the word trauma. I'm like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? Am I qualified to do this? And then I remember we were all of us, the staff members, participated as participants, and TJ ran the groups, and it felt like I was in treatment again. It felt like I was in program again. And when we were able to do the specific group and communication, I remember having that moment. And I remember, TJ, if you remember this, but I remember having that moment where I'm like, it was a reminder that I actually had a voice, and for so long, like, TJ had this way of bringing everything out of us, and we were all vulnerable. We're like, oh my God, right? We're like, I didn't know how to advocate for myself, so I was always very passive, and I always was the one that said, yes, no problem. And it really brought some awareness to me. And on my way back home, because it was 3 hours away, I was reflecting on how my method of communication was serving me, right? To keep me safe or out of conflict or to avoid conflict at all costs. So it was a really eye-opening experience for me personally.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think for both you and Megan, I have a question, and that is, having participated in the training and gone through that experience, Hector, where you wear the hat of a client, and TJ, like you said, he kind of opens the space for vulnerability and growth as a team. How do you feel that experience in that training translated to your work in facilitating the groups with the clients?
Sure. I think it's a really good reminder of how hard it is to answer some of these questions. How hard it is to identify, who do I struggle with most communicating? What's the power of word choices? At what point do I feel like I lose my voice? At what point do I feel like I overspeak? And really being asked to look at that in both the original training and in the refresher last summer. It's just a good reminder. These are not easy questions we ask clients. And this is coming from having a proper training behind us and having to answer these questions versus someone sitting in the room at 2 weeks clean, having to answer these and be like, I don't know. And also reminding them, that's an appropriate answer. You get to speak your truth. I don't know is a completely appropriate answer. The other part that a lot of the clients bring up in this group in particular is the amount of times that after they go through it, they realize, I know that my family listens to me, but I don't know how often they actually hear me. And that kind of click is really, really important. And I see that a lot more in IOP than I do here in residential level, but either way, it's the fact that they can now identify a difference. And they can identify, when are you just listening to respond versus when are you listening because you're actually listening. And teaching someone just to kind of slow down a little bit. And so there's always these little gems that come along with the curriculum. And I love that it changes every time we get a new batch of clients. But every time we've done the training, it's a really good reminder, like I said at the beginning, of just how hard it is to sometimes answer these questions where I'm I don't know if I want to look at it right now, but okay.
Yeah.
It's a thing. But yeah, I think, Jeremy, I think you were the one that said it. It was the amount of people that go home and they're I can imagine using this with, this information with my family, with my kids, with my partner, or whoever their people are. And it's nice to see that there's curriculum that these clients want to take home with them. And it's not just a classroom, you learn this, you throw it away. It's something that they can see themselves implementing because they've now learned about it, and it's something attainable.
So how it's helped me as a professional is, the first thing that TJ taught, one of the things that TJ taught us was, if something comes up in the room, learn how to normalize it, right? And in his words, let's explore it, right? Let's explore that. So I've gotten to a place where I'm more comfortable, instead of resisting and being oh my God, I don't know how to react to this. Let's explore this and let's normalize it and just bring awareness and attention to the authenticity part that's coming out in the group setting, and how to honor that without being too afraid to approach it, too scared, just kind of normalizing it, bringing it, calling it in the room and exploring it.
Wow. Thank you both so much. I have chills right now just thinking about that. TJ, did you want to reflect on that at all?
Yeah, I love that. And conscious recovery, well, there's two things I want to say. One, so much curriculum in addiction treatment is focused on using or not using, right? Or tools to not drink or use, or whatever the addiction is. Conscious recovery is really about how do we live, because it's not really about how do we not drink or use. It's about how do we actually discover principles and ways of being that will help us in our life. And the other thing is, conscious recovery isn't a teaching, right? So like a lot of times in our field, we use a term that's called psychoeducation, where we're teaching our clients something. And I don't know about anyone watching right now, but for me, I don't learn very well by either reading and retaining or someone lecturing to me and remembering. I learn through an experience. And so what all of you are speaking to is what's in the room and what's alive within each client is really the group. It's not so much what's on the paper, right? So in other words, we're not coming in and teaching someone how to have better communication styles. We're, as Hector said, we're exploring it. Let's explore our style. Let's explore where that originated. And the groups are designed where someone will have the experience of change, not us trying to get them to change. And it may sound small, but it's actually massive. Bottom line, people learn through experience, not by being told or being taught. So all the training is really about how do we hold space, how do we be curious, and allow what's emerging in the group to show up so that we can all explore together. And as a facilitator, gosh, what a relief. I don't have to teach anyone anything, and I don't have to make them learn something, and I don't have to make the group go a certain way. I can just be open, my acronym COP, curious, open, and present, and allow what needs to emerge, and then having that be what actually helps clients change.
I don't know if I could add something. I'm going to put my administrator hat on. And so, I've experienced working in different facilities, both in psychiatric hospitals and crisis stabilization, residential placements, and outpatient therapy. And I'm in private practice as well. And so when I first read your book, and actually I had shared this with you, I bought an audible. It was some time ago, and I listened to it with my partner. I was thinking about this as an administrator in the moment. How is this translated, right, into the everyday work? Because at times you can have amazing ideas and theoretical orientations that are out there, but then how do you put it out into the actual day-to-day work where counselors, therapists, come in and actually do the work? And so another thing that I would want to add is that from all the experiences I've had other places, groups tend to be, I don't want to use the word dread, but a lot of the times counselors, and it comes from the biggest desire to serve and support and help, right? To be helpful. And so what happens is if you have new counselors, new therapists who are maybe wonderful in individual therapeutic relationship rapport building, and it's a different platform, right? And it's much more manageable, but yet then they're asked to do this group with limited amount of sort of support in developing those facilitation skills or curriculum, it becomes anxiety provoking, right? And again, it comes from wanting to serve and really do the best they can to provide support to the clients. So when I saw the facilitator's guide, I was just so moved because it provides structure. It provides, you said it beautifully, TJ, that it takes away the stress because you just show up, you have this beautiful structure. It just helps you to sit and be present and not worry about anything else and really allow things to emerge and takes away that anxiety a little bit, right? And so for me, that's one beautiful thing about camp is that we invest in our counselors, in our therapists, even, also our behavioral technicians who do an amazing work with our clients. And so you coming in to do the training for us is just amazing. We have another one coming up. And that's one thing I also want to mention about camp and how wonderful it is to be part of camp family, because we do invest in our staff to increase their facilitation skills and understanding and feel confident when they walk in to facilitate groups and support clients that we serve, right? So.
Absolutely, Taya. Thank you so much. And TJ speaks to that exact thing in trainings all the time. TJ, did you want to add to that?
I don't think there's anything I can add to that. That was beautiful. Thank you, Taya. I love hearing that.
Okay. You guys ready to talk about change? Yeah. Okay. So, Hector, we're going to start with you. And what I want to start with, similarly to the way we talked about the communication group, is what is your favorite part of running the change process with the clients?
I think one of the things that's super beautiful to experience with them is that sometimes they get, most of the time, they get to see how sometimes a negative experience or life-changing experience can ultimately give them the strength that has allowed them to continue to function and move forward, right? And vice versa. This is one where the clients really enjoy, they spend a lot of time drawing their life experiences. And when they get to, at the end, when we try and guess whose drawing belongs to who, there's always like, after the group, there's always like this connection that just multiplies in the room. Like there's like this immediate magnet that people get drawn to each other because they relate so much to their experiences that their peers are sharing. So it's so good to see them how they can relate, not necessarily to the circumstance, but to their pain maybe, or to like their own way of coping, right? They've been coping with. So it's good to see them kind of just get closer. It draws the community more together in that group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Megan, what about you? What's your experience with the change group?
You know, this is my favorite group that I get to run. Hector's is authenticity, but mine's always been change, and mostly because it's so different every single time I get to run it with a client. I've had clients choose some of the most traumatic events in their life. I've had clients choose the day that they came through the gate. And I love that it does get to be a positive or a negative experience. It's something in their lifetime, in their reality that was life-changing. I've also had clients that kind of draw out what the emotions were behind the experience, where they didn't actually even draw the experience, but they drew you know, that younger girl and what that she can remember feeling. And so it was hard for anyone to really guess whose drawing that was, because it was like, how could that happen to such a small child? And it's really a chance where, because there's no names and you don't know whose drawing is who's at the beginning, clients really get the opportunity to be as vulnerable as they want to be. You know, and even I like to kind of say, like, if you are comfortable sharing that it is your drawing and you want to elaborate, like, you get to. And kind of opening the door for them to maybe do it offline or share it at group level. But clients that tell you that, you know, we're not the most arts and craftsy, and you just give them that chunk of time to do it, they almost always come up with something. And I think that that's a really cool thing, is that all you're asking them to do is draw a part of their life that stands out to them and how they've made it through it. I've also had discussions with clients where, you know, they pull strength from it because they now can recognize, I've made it through this life-changing event once. I know I can withstand something like this again. The first time that they've experienced a death in sobriety, you know, that's going to happen. But you know what? You didn't get loaded that night. And I think that really pulling from the strength that they have through moving through that change has been a huge benefit of this particular group. And again, it's very different when I run it at residential level versus IOP. But yeah, I really enjoy this particular week. Out of all of them, it's my favorite. So I'm glad we got to talk about it today. Thank you.
Yeah, I love hearing everybody's favorite groups from the curriculum, because most of the time it's authenticity, but then I'm surprised sometimes at the other favorites, you know. And Megan, if you could very briefly kind of summarize the process of that group for people watching that aren't familiar with what exactly goes down in the group itself.
Yeah, so I believe the original check-in is just, you know, they say something about change. Sometimes I prompted of, like, you know, how do you struggle with it? How do you embrace it? Whatever their kind of discussion kind of goes that way. Then you have every client kind of space out around the room. It's a little bit easier if you let them go outside. I've gone up to our amphitheater for those that have been on our campus before, because they really get to spread out. They get to be outside, they get fresh air. They kind of get the space to process it the way that they're going to process it. I bring colored pencils, crayons, whatever their inner child wants to use on that day, and they draw the experience. Sometimes they write narrative on it, sometimes they just color it. And then one by one, we all go up and we put the pictures up on the board, and then the people get to go around the room and look at each drawing and, try to guess either whose it belongs to or whose picture it is. And typically the clients will then feel comfortable enough after they've seen everyone else draw these events, again, both positive or negative, that they will share a little bit more in detail of what this picture was, what it brought up for them, having to kind of go back and relive it sometimes. And I think that that's, again, the best part, is that it's so authentic in the way that this group transpires.
Awesome.
Because sometimes it is just, it brought up more for me reflecting back than what I actually remember experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you so much. And so Taya, as the clinical director, I know change, especially in recovery, is such a huge topic because there's almost like this weird kind of group agreement in our culture that change is bad or change is too hard. And a lot of times looking at a big change, we look at it as this huge barrier or challenge, which that can be true, but it's almost like got this negative connotation to it. And I know in conscious recovery, TJ speaks to the fact that change, whether pleasant or unpleasant, you can take a profound experience from that. And so I'm wondering, in your years of clinical supervision, how you see change as a topic influence clients in their recovery.
I think one of the reasons why I went into this field and why I was interested in psychology, or just my curiosity, was because of change and resilience. And so I was always curious. I grew up in Eastern Europe, and so I have my own share of stories and sort of things that I've had to sort of journey through, right? And so I was always curious, what makes some people more resilient, or, after experiencing certain events in their lives, or just in general change, right? And so that was just, wanted to throw it out there that was one of the main reasons why I got into this field, because I was just so infinitely curious about it. Do I have an answer? I don't after all these years, but I'm still staying curious, and I think that's a good place to be. But, change, I actually just had this conversation today with one of our residents here, and part of it was the fear of change. And you said it so beautifully, because it's sort of attached to this, it's because there's uncertainty, right? So there's uncertainty that comes with it. And then there's also many times that we talk about change or events in the past, whether positive or negative, it's challenging, and many times we don't move the conversation to what are some of the strengths or kind of takeaways from that experience, right? And so this is just, I have not facilitated this group, but this, just from everything that I'm hearing and from observations that I've made, is really a beautiful way to facilitate that conversation. What, if anything, right? Just naming it, addressing it, and having that authentic moment, I guess, right, was the experience. And everybody engages in it in different way and have different takeaways. And I think our clients, the client today I was talking to you about, was just really uncertain about change. And as we delved into the conversation, he had some setbacks, and part of it was he was able to get there and say, I've just never been happy, or I don't remember how to feel, and so I have fear. I don't want to sort of put it out there and then get disappointed. So it just facilitates all this beautiful conversations and deepens sort of the understanding of yourself and even me as someone sort of companioning this person in that moment is just such a deepening experience for myself as well. So I don't know if that all made sense, what I was trying to say, but it's a powerful experience that individuals can have.
Absolutely. Made perfect sense to me. Thank you so much. TJ?
Wow. Well, in conscious recovery, we identify the 3 root causes of addiction as unresolved trauma, spiritual disconnection, and toxic shame. And in the residential curriculum, we don't directly speak to those. We don't say today's group is about trauma, or today's group is about shame, or today's group is about disconnection or connection. We have clients experience it. And so as I'm listening to everyone talking about the experience of the change group, I'm thinking of shame in particular, that shame lives in secrecy, right? And so when we invite clients to draw a life-changing moment and then stand up in front of the room and share about that, as well as hearing other people's life-changing moments, I think about that being how we heal shame. We heal shame through authenticity, vulnerability, and then we reconnect with our true nature, which is that other root cause of addiction. In my experience, we disconnect from the truth of who and what we are. And I know, Hector, that's why you love the authenticity group. And then this group is just another way to do that. It's another way for someone to say, oh, I just told you something about me that I had shame about, or that was a secret, or that I didn't know how people were going to react. But what I just experienced, no one is saying it, but what I'm feeling is that I took a risk. I talked about this, and I actually feel more connected to you, more connected with me. And so again, even though on the surface, it seems like a really simple exercise, the way we've put it together, there are so many things happening, including if you're going to cheat. I love this group because clients cheat on this one, right? They spy on each other, like who's drawing what. And even that can be useful. Like, did anyone cheat on this? And what was that about for you? And is it even cheating, right? And what was that about? And, we talked about this in the first conversation about the other group. Everything is useful. So if someone gets caught cheating, God knows I used to be the person that cheated on tests. We can even go into that, like, how do you think that's a brilliant strategy? And why do you think you were doing that? And we find out that maybe the reason they were doing it is maybe they have a core belief that they're not good enough or not smart enough. And so they might have a lot of anxiety about trying to guess who drew it. I may not even realize that's an issue for them. And that emerges from something so simple as they cheated and looked at someone else's, right? So all the groups are designed to have multiple opportunities to see what emerges in the room. And, as Megan said, we never know what's going to show up. Every group is going to be different. And I'm just going to tell you one of my favorite groups, which we could talk about at another time, is living on purpose. That's another one where people really get to ask the question, like, now that I'm sober, or now that I'm trying to get sober, what does life look like? How do I live more on purpose? So I guess just to recap what I'm saying, just really grateful hearing the experience of conscious recovery at the camp. And I have such profound gratitude for the camp and all the amazing work they do. So being able to partner with you all in this way is just so rewarding.
Awesome. Thanks, TJ. Yeah, and you really echoed a lot of what Hector and Megan said, in that a lot of times running these groups, when we go into the shadow, when we go into the things that we have shame around, that we push way deep down and don't want anybody to see, and then we bring that stuff out in a very vulnerable, open way, a lot of times we're under the impression that if we let people see, we'll be judged, we'll be rejected. And like Hector said, and it's really you can feel it in the room, this connectedness and this getting closer in the group. And it's really a feeling, I wish I could describe it better, but you have to feel it. And when you're in the room, you do feel it. And I love that.
I wanted to tell you something funny, Jeremy. There's a program in Texas, I'll just say that, a program in Texas, and they work a lot with veterans. And I think all of you will appreciate this who have worked with conscious recovery. It's an all men's program, or at least it has been for the last several months during COVID. And a lot of veterans, and the big joke is, oh, it's conscious recovery group, everyone get your Kleenex, right? So there's this idea, there's this buildup. And really, to speak more authentically to that, having worked with vets and watching the layers of the conversation of veterans and all that they go through. And I remember this powerful moment that happened in the training when I was at the program in Texas. The clinician themselves they're a veteran, and they said, oh my gosh, I grew up in a war zone and then I signed up for one. And that moment just was so incredibly powerful. And, a lot of people who are attracted to the military might have come from a system where they were not allowed to have emotions, or they believe they shouldn't have emotions. There's different cultures where we're taught not to have emotions, right? Sometimes men get told that. There are so many layers to that. And being able, all joking aside, it's conscious recovery time, bring your Kleenex. It's just an opportunity for them to let down those walls and to watch some of these veterans allow themselves to cry and allow themselves to feel. And gosh, what could be more powerful than being in a room full of people that maybe I felt like I had to, be strong or be brave, because actually crying with another group of people is actually strength and bravery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, TJ. Thank you so much. So as we come to a close in our chat today, I thought we could end, we'll kind of go around the horn and start with you, Hector, of course. And I think I'd like to close on some gratitude, what you're grateful for at the camp and what you're grateful for with your work with conscious recovery. And we'll just kind of bundle it up as one share.
So I'm grateful that one of the things I'm grateful for about the camp is that that I've been here for almost 5 years, and every day that I show up to this place, it doesn't feel like I'm coming to work. I literally walk into this place with a smile on my face because I really love the work that we do here. And then what I'm grateful about conscious recovery is I'm so grateful that, like, for example, with Recovery Rocks, when the clients get to experience their liberation and letting go of their false beliefs, when I get the opportunity to participate in that and throw my stone, I'm very grateful that I have those moments where I can just liberate myself for a little while and just be like, I'm not going to let this have any hold on me anymore, and just release it, That's one of the things I'm very grateful about conscious recovery.
Love it. Thank you, Hector. Megan, what about you?
When I first got hired at the camp, I remember telling them it was really important for me to set roots. And I think that over the last 2 years, I've been able to do that. And being able to get promoted up to the position that I'm at now and still having the opportunity to help with IOP. There's not a lot of facilities where you get to kind of dabble in so many different departments. And it's been nice to kind of get that exposure, because I can come back and I can tell clients when I run conscious recovery on the unit, this is something that was brought up at the IOP level. This is something that I know you guys can relate to. And it's been really, really exciting to kind of watch both of those worlds overlap so much, which shows me that this curriculum does span a great variety of people. And it's something that can be implemented at more than just the residential level of care and just the IOP level of care. But also I think that having a topic each week, and every time I run it at the IOP level, it's usually on a Monday, that theme kind of follows throughout the week. And I always feel more energized, which I love. And it makes me look at all of my own stuff, which is also fun too. So thanks for that. But yeah, I think I really appreciate just how versatile it can actually be and how client-led it can actually be, because that allows it to be different every single time we run it every 3 months, But yeah, I think that the simplicity of it allows for that type of depth to happen organically, which I think is really important for clients as they come through treatment.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Taya, how about you?
Well, I think you may have been at our campus. What I'm very grateful is the environment. We have acres of redwood trees around us, and we have a wonderful environment for healing to take place, where you just sort of strip away the noise of the technology and cars and all the other things that could be distracting us to really focus on ourselves and zoom inward. And so it's a beautiful environment. Walking in, even just myself as well, just being part of it is just something I'm grateful every day. And what camp is really unique, and I've worked in many different environments, and what's unique about it, you have amazing group of people that really are heart-centered, person-centered, and really are there, like Hector said. Most of the experiences I've had, everybody I've met, from behavioral technicians to directors, is that they're here at camp because that's where they want to be. And that's a very unique experience and something different that you don't get in many places. And that then translates into the work and relationships we'll build with our residents and everybody who comes through our programs. And those relationships are lasting. And so I'm very grateful to be part of such an amazing, unique environment. And when it comes to conscious recovery, I think what really got me focused and interested and made me pick up the book was one word, which was the lens from which it's looking at an individual, that you are whole and you're perfect, that you're not broken like many other methods or theories that are out there. So that on its own, I'm just grateful, TJ, for you expressing that and putting that and sharing your gift so that we can take that and then sort of give back in a way. So I'm just very grateful for conscious recovery and the lens and the sort of how it's approaching.
Awesome. Thank you so much. TJ?
Wow, I love that, Taya. And I'm going to actually start with that. I mean, I'm going to do it in reverse. I'm going to, since, we're reversed here. I'm grateful to hear you say that, Taya. And also, Jeremy and I have a big vision. And that vision really is to let more and more people experience their own wholeness, their own true nature. And it comes right out of my experience. I felt broken. I felt damaged. I disconnected from myself. I had so many core false beliefs that ran my life, and I felt hopeless, even well into recovery. And so my experience of reconnecting with my purpose, my true nature, exploring that question, what if I am whole and perfect underneath all of this? And that was a gift that was given to me. So I appreciate that you distilled it down to that simplicity, because that's really the power. In all my books and all my work, it all comes down to that. There's a place within you that is unharmed and unharmable, and really life. But in this conversation, recovery is about returning to that. It's not about attaining something. So I'm grateful for the camp, as I've already said, because of the, early adopters of conscious recovery, but also what you're speaking to. I think of Sonia and I think of her light and the people that work with the camp, and there's a sense of passion and purpose. And our work can be really hard. I mean, that's the bottom line. The work can be really hard. And I had a former high school teacher ask me, how do you work with people with addiction? That must be exhausting because the success rate is so low. And as she was saying it all, I'm like, ooh, gosh, if I looked at it through that lens, this work would be really hard. So what I love about the energy and the philosophy and the overall feeling at the camp is, yes, and this work is really rewarding because we get to be of service to people in profound ways. So those are my moments of gratitude, Jeremy.
Awesome. Thank you, TJ. And thank all of you for joining for this chat today. I have a very special place in my heart for the camp. TJ and I have worked with the camp for so many years. And when I'm there, what I'll say is that I feel like the staff feel like they're supposed to be there. And you can tell when you go to a treatment program and the staff do not feel like they should be there. You can feel it. And with both the staff and the residents at the camp, it feels very much like everybody there is divinely placed to channel their purpose and support people in this deep recognition of their wholeness. And I'm really grateful for that and for our collaboration. So thank you all so much for joining us and for everybody watching. And I hope we can do another one of these soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.